I'll start it off.
Okay.
Welcome to another episode of the Exploring Unknown. I'm Dustin. I'm Luke.
I guess I'm Luke.
Let me
I'm
let
fucking
me
keeping
let me
it.
do
I'm
that.
keeping it.
Welcome, seekers of the paranormal. And listen in as we dive into the eerie and unexplained. So turn off the lights as we join Dustin and Luke in exploring the unknown.
And today we have Joe Shortridge on, and he has some pretty crazy encounters. I think the craziest one is when he saw the full figure.
Yeah, the full body apparition.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say that would be wild. I couldn't imagine that.
I would agree.
He's also the host on the 222 Paranormal podcast.
Yeah, you
Or
can
one of the
find him at
hosts.
222paranormal.com. All his links are on his website. And you want to get into this episode?
Let's do it.
Awesome.
We travel a lot with our show and we go to different, all over the country basically. And I always say I never get scared. I've spent the night in insane asylums. I've spent the night in prisons. I've watched the sunrise over the wall in what was that, West Virginia Penitentiary, which a lot of people say is one of the most scariest places. And I do know my sister did get an attachment there, but I don't know. Like I said, I've been to a lot of different places, and I never get scared. This is what we go to these places for. It's more of an excitement thing. But saying that, we were in Butler, Pennsylvania for a convention, and we saw that there was a place called the Black Cross, which is a cemetery for the migrant workers that worked on the railroad, and they were hit with the yellow fever epidemic. Now, being that they were the migrants, the Catholic Church in the area refused to bury them in their churchyard. I don't know why. There's different politics involved in that kind of stuff. But this local farmer decided that he would allow them to be buried on his land. So he offered up some land, and I don't know exactly who buried them. Maybe the railroad did, but I'm not sure. But anyhow, there's this area, it's called the Black Cross, and the reason why they call it the Black Cross is they took some railroad ties and made a cross out of them and made it into the monument for these people that are buried there. Nowadays, you go there is a historical plaque out by the road, but basically, if you were to take a 5-gallon bucket and fill it with cement, let it dry, and then flip it over, that's the monument that's there right now. There's hardly anything there. And this place is relatively small. It's, I would imagine, 50 yards off the road, and the whole area is probably 25 by 25 foot, but it's in the woods. And the thing is, you drive back on this country road, and there's a few houses on this road, but really nothing else. And you get back into that area, and it was me, my sister, and a friend of ours, Josh from Haunted Toledo. And we were just there to check it out. Now, when we got there, you get this strange feeling. And, we've been to a lot of cemeteries because no matter where we go, we always usually end up at a cemetery. But we walked in this area and we got a strange feeling to begin with. And we actually could hear voices, people talking. We could hear babies crying, which is weird because there's no babies there. We heard babies crying, and it just seemed like the woods were looking at us. And we did our normal thing. We walked around, looked around. We did a couple EVP sessions, didn't get anything. But Standing next to me was a stump, and it's about a 3 foot stump, and someone tied a red bow on it. And I told my sister, I'm like, look at this. This is kind of interesting. I don't know why they did this. I turned my head, I turned back, and that stump actually turned into a full body apparition of a guy jumping out of the woods at me. And I could see exactly how he was dressed. He had gray wool pants on, he had a red shirt, he had a flip it style hat, but his face and his hands were, I mean, we always say they're ashen, but they were like a gray ash color. And he was jumping out of the woods at me. And just as he got to me and to grab me, he vanished. And I jumped about 6 feet off the ground. I I like to say that I should have been wearing Depends, but that didn't happen. But yeah, I jumped. We have it on video where Jen's got her camera out and she's scanning the area, and all of a sudden you hear me like scream like a little girl and jump about 6 feet in the air, and my adrenaline was pumping like you would not believe. And she's like, I've never seen you jump like that. I'm like, that I've never got scared like that. That freaked me out. Because, you don't expect a stump to turn into a person and then jump out at you and then just vanish and turn back into a stump just that quick. But, a lot of people say, well, maybe you're imagining it. No, when I see things like that, I'm not imagining it because, I've woken up in the middle of the night with a 7 foot shadow figure standing over my bed, and I was just like, oh, okay, whatever, but this, like, I don't know, just one of them things. I wasn't expecting it, and to see a full body apparition like that jumping out just freaked me out. And like I said, that's really the only time I've ever got scared.
Yeah, catches you off guard. And you don't expect
Oh man, did it? Yeah, and it was like
Did you feel like it was attacking you?
yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. It was like jumping out of the woods, and it's almost like it got within a foot of me and just poof, just disappeared, and it was back to a norm that stump. So after that, we gathered our thoughts and went back to the car, and we ended up going to a restaurant in town. We're like, well, let's go to the restaurant, and we're sitting there recanting. It's like, man, we heard these voices, all this, and I'm like, it's I've seen full body apparitions before, but that's one there just got to me. I don't know why. And we're sitting at the restaurant, and it's kind of funny because we always say, be careful that you don't get attachments while you're in these locations. And I'm sitting there and I feel something on my wrist, and I look down and there was a tick on my wrist. I'm like, oh, and we tried to kill it, it wouldn't die. And we're like, yeah, we got attachments. We're laughing. And all of a sudden I feel another one on my other arm. I'm like, another tick. So when you go to these locations, not only is the dead going to attack you, but the living does too. So be careful that you don't get attachments. We were sitting there in the restaurant, we're like, check, please. We all had to go back to the hotel, and I was the first one to jump in the shower. I stripped off my clothes and I literally undressed outside, ran in the hotel room, took a hot shower. But yeah, that was one of the only times I've ever got really scared at a location, and I think it's because it did catch me off guard.
And you said that's in Butler, PA, right?
Yeah, Butler. So I'm not sure exactly how far away from Butler it is, but I knew it wasn't that long of a drive. That's why we ended up there.
Now, if you Google it, will it pop up on like Google Maps?
Yeah, yeah, it should. Just type in the Black Cross, I believe, on Google Maps, and you'll see it.
Did you say cross or frost?
Cross.
Now, do you guys do anything like any kind of protection rituals or anything like that before you go into these kinds of locations?
Usually after we, just before we leave, it we do different. I don't want to say rituals per se, but there's certain things that we do in different locations. Like, when we do our ghost hunting investigations, whenever we leave a location, there's a few things we do. One, we always leave our equipment outside of our car for a little bit. And that's for two different things. That's one thing is, all night long we're telling the ghosts or the spirits, come and speak through this equipment, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we leave our equipment outside the car for a little bit. And two, a lot of these places that we go to are always old, dirty locations. And sort of like with, going to the Black Cross, we picked up ticks because it's in the woods. But you go into some of these locations, you don't know if you're going to have spiders on you. You don't know if you're going to have different things. So that's one of the reasons why we leave our equipment outside for a few minutes. And I'm telling you, we've been into some bad locations. Here in Toledo, we got invited over to a house, and this house was so nasty. It smelled like cat pee, all that. So that was another time where I physically undressed outside, my back door before I went in the house and left all the clothes, the equipment was out there all night long, just because you never know what you're going to bring home.
Yeah.
But when we leave a certain, different locations, one of my thing is, you always say a prayer, whether you're religious or not. A prayer doesn't have to be, to a God or your God or that. You just say, like when I leave a location, I always say, hey, we're leaving. We enjoyed spending time with you, but you need to stay here. I always say, you do not have permission to come home with us. We'll come back and visit you, but you have to stay here and stuff like that. And, I've been with groups that actually get in a circle and they pray, stuff like that. But you really have to protect yourselves when you're leaving these locations,
Yeah.
because you figure all night long you're saying, come speak to me, come talk to me, come, this. Sometimes I tell them, you're allowed to touch me. Um, you're allowed to use my energy if you want, but don't drain me, that kind of thing. So, you just got to be careful because attachments are true. Attachments do happen. Like I mentioned about West Virginia Penitentiary, we did an investigation there and we spent the night there. So we were there all night long doing different things. And my sister actually got an attachment there. And I don't think we actually said our prayer when we left because, some nights we're doing this and we leave a location and we're just drained. We're just like, oh, okay, let's just go back to the hotel and stuff like that. And that was fortunate too, because we did talk to the hotel and they said, you guys are booked for a night, but we'll leave that room open. Just come on back and just leave whenever you want, that kind of thing. So we ended up going back to the hotel. She got her room, I got mine. We chilled out. About, I'd say maybe 2 weeks later, middle of the night, she calls me up and I'm like, middle of the night conversations are never the best, or, phone calls. So I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, I'm so pissed. I'm like, why? And she's like, I don't know. I'm just pissed. And she says that she hasn't been feeling right and that. And fortunately, we were doing an event that weekend and there was a Native American shaman there. And I called him over and said, hey, man, we did this investigation. Jen's just not feeling right. And he's like, I'll talk to her and see. So he ended up doing a ritual on both of us. We did the a lot of people call it smudging, but the smoke rituals that the Native Americans do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He took a shell, put some, I forget what he put in it, but he burned it and he did the whole ceremony where I take the smoke in my eyes to only see the best of you. I, take the smoke into my mouth to only speak the best of you, stuff like that. So we did this ritual and she actually felt a lot better. He cleansed her of whatever was attached to her. But yeah, you got to be careful because there's, you're dealing with things that we don't truly understand, and you have to be careful because, like I said, you're telling them, come talk to me, come touch me, this all stuff all night long. So you're inviting them into your body all night long, and even into your equipment. And you gotta say a prayer, whether it's a religious prayer or just a goodbye, we'll come back, that kind of thing. But you have to tell these spirits that they're not allowed to follow you home, they're not allowed to possess you. You know, you're welcome to come back. We'll talk to you again, that kind of thing. But just do your leaving prayers, whether you're religious or not.
Right.
Yeah, I always wanted to investigate the penitentiary. I live like a half hour from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're fortunate to only live that far away from it because that's a cool place. I when we pulled up to West Virginia Penitentiary, it's in the neighborhood, and I forget if came in the morning or night, but we're driving through the neighborhood. I'm like, where is this place? And we turn the corner, and I'm like, holy crap, this place is huge.
Yeah, it's a massive place.
I was like, okay, because the road that we came in on, I don't know if it's I think it's dead center of the building or something. And I'm like looking to my right and my left. I'm like, place is massive.
I've been outside of it, but I've never been inside of it.
Oh, that's cool. They have a thing. It's called the Sugar Shack.
I've heard of it. My dad
And
actually investigated it a couple of times.
oh, really? Did you capture anything?
I can't remember exactly, but he's seen
Okay.
stuff and he has sells clothing and whatnot.
Yeah, it's cool. I remember we were investigating, and my sister was by cell number 13, and she's like, "What cell number am I near?" And it said 13, kind of growling type voice in her recorder. And she's like, "Ah, thank you," and she goes around, and I guess if I can remember right, I've been to so many of these places, like they kind of all blend together. But if I can remember right, on the other opposite side of the compound is it's like a center post, and there's cells on both sides. And she was on the other side, and she was by 13 again. And she's like, "What cell am I by?" And it was almost like they screamed at her. On the recorder, you hear 13, like, stop asking me.
That's cool.
But yeah, it is so cool there. Yeah, I love prisons. I mean, one of the things when I go into these prisons, and sometimes we're alone, like that night we were there by ourselves. And but sometimes we have big groups in that, or even like we do the convention at the Ohio State Reformatory. But every time I'm in these prisons, I think, how loud must it have been when all these people were in there? It's just, I can imagine. And I've talked to people, and they've said, it's deafening loudness in these places. It's like, no wonder there's so much residual hauntings. It's, this you've heard of the stone tape theory. I can imagine the energy that's put into those walls.
Yeah, I've actually been
You
to
know,
Ohio State Reformatory.
that place is cool
I've
too.
been there for a convention. I was there for a convention.
Then you probably saw me there because we've been to every one so far that they've had, all five of them, and we're going back this year.
When is it this year?
It's in May, I believe. May 17th. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's May 17th.
I'll have to look into it. That'd be something cool to do.
Yeah. Yeah, when you come in, you're going to have to stop in and say hi. We're always up in the main uh, guard room, in the main, there's the main room in the middle. We're always up in the corner there. You'll see our giant banner.
Yeah, I want to definitely keep in touch with you about that. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool location. I've never investigated there. I've done a lot of tours there, because like I said, we do the convention, and we're good friends with Greg Vatetic, who runs the tours. And with Tri-C Ghost Hunters, they're awesome people. And we've heard a lot of things now, even when we were there just doing the walkthroughs, for the conventions, we've heard stuff. There's way up in the top, the attic area where when the prison in Columbus burnt down, they brought a bunch of the prisoners. Now these guys were hardened criminals, and at the time, the Ohio State Reformatory was not a prison; it was a reformatory
Mm-hmm.
where it wasn't like hardened criminals. These were people that were being reformed. That's why they had that. They had their own self-sustained like little city, and these the hardened criminals came from Columbus after the fire, and they put them upstairs in what is now just an attic where the heating and cooling systems are. We were up there doing, just a walkthrough, kind of a meet and greet type deal thing. So we were up there with Dave Schrader and a bunch of few other people, and they turned out the lights, it's showing look how scary it is and all that. And I look over at Schrader and I kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, yeah, here we go. And we looked up and we saw these blue lights just dancing across, and then there were some red lights that were dancing across. And at first I was thinking, oh, there's somebody down there with a meter or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they turned on the lights and there was no one down at the other end of the room. So I'm like, okay, maybe there is something here. And we the people, we were like, okay, everybody be quiet. Let's do an EVP session. So we did an EVP session. And during the EVP session, we didn't hear nothing. And then when we played it back, you could hear people talking and stuff. It was cool. So that place has definitely got some good hauntings in it if you ever get a chance to actually investigate it. I talked to Greg a couple days ago, and I told him, I'm like, man, I want to investigate because what, we've been going there for 5 years for the convention and other events, but we've never investigated there. And it's like, man, I just want to investigate this place. Give me a night,
Yeah.
just just lock the doors behind us and let us at it.
Now, how many people was in your group?
Well, we don't really have a group. Me and my sister, have the 222 Paranormal podcast,
Uh-huh.
and but we get, being that we don't have a official group, we get the opportunity to investigate with a lot of different groups. Now we do have, our core people here in Toledo. We have the Toledo Ohio Ghost Hunter Society, and we also have Haunted Toledo, which we do a lot of events with. So I would love to take a few of those guys with us because, Ohio State's so big. You could get 20 people in that place and never run into each other all night long.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things, we were doing the convention there, so a TV company came in and was doing a show about it, and they invited us, to do an interview. And we're like, yeah, cool. Any chance I get to be interviewed, I love doing that. So I was like, yeah, that's cool, man. They're like, okay, we'll meet you in the basement at this time. Um, they said the crew will be down there, but walk in as if they're not there. I'm like, yeah, no, yeah, and all that. So I walk in the basement, and there's no one there. I'm like, okay, there's no one here. So I'm sitting there looking around, and my sister's like, are we on time? We're like, yeah, they told us this time. I'll just say 10 o'clock. I'm not sure the exact time, but they told us 10. And I walk out and I see the producer, and I'm like, hey, man, I went down. No one's down there. He's like, yeah, they're down there. I'm like, there's no one down there. And he's like, were you in the basement or the sub basement? I'm like, I didn't know there was another basement. Here underneath Solitary, there's actually a basement. And then you go down these other steps and it's actually deeper under there. And we walked in, they're all in there, but it's like there's so many hidden locations in that complex that people don't know about. And like I said, I've been going there for 5 years and never even knew that there was a second basement under the basement. So there's places hidden where people could be, or I should say spirits could be in, and you don't even know.
Yeah. I've been to that James Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. That's a pretty big place too.
Yeah, I've never been there. That's one of the bucket list places. That's pretty cool.
Have you ever been to Hillview Manor in Pennsylvania?
No, no. There's, like I said, we've been out west a lot. We have never been to the East Coast yet. We're working on that. Gettysburg, stuff like that. A lot of locations here in Toledo, um, Jerome, Arizona. That was an interesting place. If you ever get a chance to get out there, um, we do some stuff over in St. John's in the Virgin Islands.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. But Trans Allegheny, I've never been to. What's that other one? I can't think of the name of it, but we were at a convention.
Is it in PA or West Virginia?
PA, I believe. It's starts with a W. My mind just went totally blank. It's the big tuberculosis hospital that everybody goes to. I can't think of it. But anyways, we were at a convention and we're like, let's go there. And we thought maybe they'd have like a gift shop or something. And
Yeah.
we pull up and it's like there's gates, and they're like, well, no, you're only if you're allowed or invited to come in, you can come in, all that. And we're like, oh, we just thought you'd have a guest shop or that, so we can say we were there, but we were in the parking lot, but we weren't actually there. And I can't think of the name of it. It's this huge complex in the shape of a C, and it's made to collect the wind for tuberculosis patients. And I guess the spirits aren't letting me remember the name.
I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
Yeah. Oh man. But anyhow, like I said, we've been to a lot of different places all over the country, and there's a lot of these most popular ones that we haven't actually been to because we've hit a lot of the smaller places.
Yeah.
One place here in Toledo that we might want to talk about, and it's not open anymore. We call it the Bone House. And what this is a house here in Toledo, right by the railroad station, where a gentleman that he ended up buying the property to rebuild. You know, he wanted to fix it up, and I don't know if he wanted to move into it or if he wanted to resell it. But it's a smaller house, um, but it's called the Bone House. And the reason we call it the Bone House is when he started doing the renovations on it, he would pull like the boards off the walls to put new insulation and wiring that in. And he found bones falling out of the walls. And he's like, okay, this is weird. And then after a few minutes of doing this, he found more bones falling out of the walls. Well, it turns out that every single board, floorboard, all that he pulled up, there were bones underneath or inside the walls. As he dug deeper, he found different, like love notes. He found articles of clothing in the walls. Way back in the corner of the attic, he found a whole like collection of different letters to different families and stuff. Well, the more he was working on this place, the more he found bones. So he got a hold of Haunted Toledo. Haunted Toledo came out to do an investigation on the place. And the first night they did their investigation, there was actually a shooting right outside the place, right outside, and someone actually got killed right in front of the building. So that kind of stopped their investigation, and the police came out and everything. Yeah, yeah. So they stopped their investigation for that night. They came back the next night and continued their investigation. And this place was amazing. There was so much activity that went on in this place. And the actual news crews came out. If you look up Channel 24 News in Toledo and type in the Bone House, they show their little segment that they did. So they started collecting all these bones, and the coroner's office came out and collected some, and they did tests on them and found that most of the bones were canine, a lot of chicken bones, but mainly canine and other, they quote, said large animals. So we don't know what they consider large animals. We don't know if anything else happened in that house, but come to find out, the house was the center of what they call Santeria. It's a Mexican religion. And in Santeria, they do sacrifices. So this house was used for Santeria rituals and stuff, I guess. And we were now let me step back for a minute here. But we were on the porch. And as you know, we use tools like K2s and voice recorders, and video and stuff when we do our investigations. And my tool that I use first is the K2. A lot of people don't like it, but I love the K2. And what that is a EMF detector. It registers different levels of EMF in the air, which is great because like when you do an investigation, you can take your equipment in during the day and get your baselines and stuff like that so that okay, if there is any power to the building, there's Wi-Fi here, there's, the power box here, that kind of stuff. But with the Bone House, he was doing remodeling, so there was absolutely no water. There was no power at all. There was no gas lines, nothing like that. Now, we were standing on the front porch, and I just held the K2 meter. It was a normal, like when you have it on and it's not recording anything or detecting anything, the light will just be green, showing that the power's on. I took that K2 meter and just held it inside the door of the house, and it went right to red and didn't blink or nothing. It was just solid red, which is extreme EMF. And so I'm like, okay, wait a minute. The railroad station, the Amtrak station is just down the street. Are there, major power lines running under this house? So Haunted Toledo, when they do investigations, they're true paranormal investigators. They spend weeks investigating at the library more than being at the location. They figure out the history of the place. They figure out, where the power sources are, all that before they even go into a location. And Chris, who's in charge of Haunted Toledo, he's like, no, I've checked this. There's no electrical power lines running under the house. There's no water source running under the house, anything. So we were getting full EMF readings just by holding the thing in the door. So that was useless. That tool was useless in that building. So we just used our voice recorders, and we were upstairs in the attic. Now, this is a 2-story house. First story is where the living area was, and the second story was just an open attic. And there was a big table up there with a lot of cut marks in it. There was a block and tackle over the stairway, so they could, I guess, lift up animals or whatever they did. I don't know. We were up in the attic, and now I wasn't there when they had the board ripped off the wall, but they were sitting there, show us that you're here, and all of a sudden a board literally was ripped off the wall, pulled out. It was nailed to the wall. It got pulled out and thrown across the room. They had that on tape. When we were upstairs, one of the things I'm surprised there's no bats in here, because the windows, he was putting brand new windows in, but they weren't quite fitting in the space, so there was a gap. So I'm like, I'm surprised there's no bats. And just as I said that, a white bat flew over all our heads and freaked us all out. Now, I don't know if there's white bats anywhere in the country, but I know here in Toledo there's no such thing as white bats, especially as big as this thing was. And everybody saw it. We had, all our flashlights out. We could see this thing flew over our heads, freaked us all out. And we're like, okay. So we went searching for it. We never did find it. And we don't know. Was that a spirit, making himself known? Because it almost looked like a dove flying over, but it was definitely a bat. And we could never find it afterwards. We searched that attic. We've heard people screaming up there. I remember Sarah was sitting there. She's in Haunted Toledo. And she was like, if you guys don't do something soon, I'm going to banish you all. And all of a sudden you heard them screaming at her and stuff, calling her names and stuff. So that place was very active. I didn't really believe it that much when I first went there. I said, yeah, right, bones under everything. And the owner of the house was like, no, watch. He grabbed a hammer and pulled a board off the floor in the attic. Pulled it off. I watched it. It's not like he set it up or anything. We look down, and there's a little face carving, like in a bone. And I wish I would have known. I would have sent this to you. But he picks it up, and there's a little bone, and it has a face carved into it.
That's creepy.
And he's like, see, I told you. I'm like, oh my God, this is weird. So that place there is, we always say, one of the most haunted places I've ever been. And I agree that is one of the most haunted places. And it's, unfortunately, no one can get in there now. The guy that owned it and was remodeling it, the house called to him every single night he would wake up in the middle of the night in his underwear, get in his car and drive over there and dig the floors, stuff like that. So he actually ended up selling the place. I don't know who owns it now, but he ended up selling it, and I've been driving past there, it's like nobody's working on it. The outside house looks nice. They did the roof. He painted the outside, but the inside is still gutted. And I don't think they're going to do anything with that house.
The whole white bat thing's weird. I never heard of a white bat before.
Yeah, I know. That's what we all said. We're like, that. I've never in my life seen a white bat. And we were thinking, wait a minute, was that a dove? Was that no? It was clear as day. We all saw it. There was probably 6 of us up there at that time.
I mean, granted, there's albino bats, but I think that would
Yeah,
be weird to just
and
have
to have it
one.
show up like that, just as I said that, you know,
Yeah.
I could see if, I mean, like when we talked about West Virginia Penitentiary, how, you stand in the back door and the bats fly over your head because they're coming in and out of the place. But like this, we didn't see any activity, no birds up there, nothing. And for me, just say, I'm surprised there's no bats, and then all of a sudden the thing flies over your head,
It's wild.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Hmm.
Do you guys have anything caught on on recorder or anything from that place?
Not well. We have audio stuff from there. I'd almost have to dig in and find it. It's been a couple of years since we've been there. I know my sister had some stuff on recorder where they were calling their names and stuff. But just a lot of the stuff that we captured there, it was all just visual stuff to where we saw things happen. And like I said, I know that Haunted Toledo had that board ripped off the wall when they were there doing their investigations. But I wasn't there when that happened, so I can't, say I saw that.
We have a lot of weird stuff. We both work together at a high school and middle school, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of weird stuff that goes on in that school at night when
You ain't
nobody's
kidding.
there.
What's the name of that school?
McGuffey High School.
Okay. It's weird how, we find different places that are haunted and you think, well, why would this place be haunted? But, there's a lot of activity that went on in schools. I know there's one that called Post Town that a lot of people go to. I haven't investigated there. I've done events there, but it's weird how, we think about like insane asylums and all that kind of being haunted, but you think of like churches or schools or that. But you got to remember, different emotions happen there. Different things happen in these locations, and it's places that people gather. And you'll find a lot of places that people gather are haunted.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah, I mean schools are great.
it's still an active school, so the kids still go there and everything. We're custodians,
Hmm.
and at night it's just very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that also just talking about the paranormal kind of draws it in because I noticed that ever since him and I have been more trying to plan out this podcast and think of different content ideas, I've had some experiences that I don't know. It just seems odd to me that we start getting more into the paranormal and then I start to notice things or have experiences.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it could be a couple of different things. It could be in your brain. There's a. It's. Do you ever notice that when let's say you bought a new car, all of a sudden you see that car around you all the
Oh
time,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
or numbers,
Mm-hmm.
But there's a thing in the brain called the activated reticulating system, and what that is it is the part of your brain that recognizes important things.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to think about this: humans are deletion characters. We are deleting so many things all day long that are not important because your brain is saying, okay, this is not important. We're just not even going to notice. It's sort of like right now, but you're going to notice it when I bring it up is you don't recognize the sound of the blood going through your ears. You don't recognize the sound of a car driving down the street, or you don't recognize your heart beating, stuff like that, because your brain is not saying that's important. So now that you're into this field, you're going to notice more things because you're saying, okay, I want to look for this stuff. This is more important to me. So your brain's going, okay, we're going to check that out.
Right.
And it's sort of like when, I do a lot of stuff with the law of attraction and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it's basically just putting that stuff out in the universe saying, hey, this is important.
Right.
Now with the paranormal, you're getting into this and you're looking for different topics and that you're going to find that there's a saying that we talk about, and we just did a class. I taught a class at Owens College here. My friend Harold, who owns what the heck, Chile Ohio Ghost Hunter Society, he does a class every year. So he invited me out to do a class on photography, and we were talking to the classmates, and we were telling them, one thing that we've learned in this field is the more you learn, the less you know.
Mhm.
So the more stuff that you look into, you're going to find that there's so many rabbit holes you're going to go down,
Oh
Yeah,
and there's
for
so
sure.
many different things that you can learn,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and you're gonna drive yourself nuts.
Yeah, and another thing, like in my experiences, is once you know something, you can't not know it. You know what I mean? Like once you see it from one perspective,
Yeah,
you can't go back.
no, and being podcasters, a lot of people think, oh, you know so much. It's like we know a lot, but we know a lot of little things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I had someone ask me to speak on a certain topic, and I'm like, yeah, I've done shows on that, but I don't know a lot about that.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's this once you get into this, and you guys, I know you guys are fresh at this, and you're going to be learning so much, and you're going to be meeting some really great people. One thing that when we started doing this 8 years ago, me and my sister have been doing the podcast for 8 years. We've got, oh God, almost 400 shows now, 385 shows in the can.
That's amazing.
Um, you're going to find that you're going to meet a lot of great people, but you're also going to meet some people that are strange, you know, but that's okay because everybody has their own opinions about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part is everybody has their own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to learn so much.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that it was funny because one of the things that, we teach when you go into podcasting or stuff like that is you have to remember when you're doing a podcast, you're talking to one person. Okay. You may have tons of downloads, like we average around 10,000 downloads. And people think, wow, that's a lot of people you're talking to. It's like, no, I'm talking to one person. You're in their ears.
Yep.
You're in their earbuds. You're talking to that one person. And when you start out a podcast, they tell you, okay, now niche down. And we're like, well, we want to talk about the paranormal. Well, when you start a podcast, you're like, what is that one listener that you're talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Describe that one person you're talking to. And when we say describe them, I mean, tell me, what do they look like? How do they dress? Where do they live? Where do they work? What do they do for fun? All that. And that's how you figure out your core audience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we did that. And I described this guy. He was I'd say around 26 years old. He loves gaming. He loves to be in groups. He's looking for someone to hang out with because lots of times paranormal people are loners because they always feel that, they're weirdos or whatever, and no one wants to hang out with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I described this guy, and I'm like, he lives in his mom's basement. I threw that in there just for the hell of it. He's a little overweight. He loves to hang out with people, but he's shy. He's an introvert, all this. And it was funny because our first convention we did here in Toledo at the Collingwood Arts Center, we set up, and I swear to God, he was standing right in front of us. We had our booth set up. I look up, and here's this guy, and he is to the T. Even his shoes were the ones I thought about.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, did I make an egregore? Because like talpas or thought forms.
Yeah.
Did I make him?
You manifested
But
it.
no, it's just yeah. And I met him and he turned out to be a really cool kid. And he was like, man, I've wanted to meet you guys and all this stuff. So, is it one of those things where I had a vision of the future or did I create him? But yeah, it's like you're going to meet a lot of great people in this field, and a lot of people will come up to you and say, you know, I've never told anybody this before, but you'll have a lot of that. Or you're going to run into people that say, well, I've never had a paranormal encounter, but I did wake up in the middle of the night and there was a shadow figure standing over me or something like that,
That's a paranormal encounter right there. If I think
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. I've had people, I mean, obviously we go, like I said, we travel all over the country doing this. And I've had people come up to me and say, well, I don't believe in this stuff. I'm a Christian or I'm Catholic. I don't believe in this stuff. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm thinking in my mind, here we go. You know, one lady come up to me. I was in Whitmore Lake, Michigan, at an event, and she come up to me. She's like, I don't believe in this. I believe in Jesus. I don't believe in none of this stuff that you do. I'm like, okay, all right. I said, so you don't believe that Jesus passed away and 3 days later he rose to heaven? And then after that, he appeared to his apostles and they did not recognize him. And he actually called himself a ghost, And she's like, well, that's different. I'm like, no, not really. I said, at every funeral, what do? You, every Catholic funeral, you tell the spirits to, you're releasing them to go to heaven and stuff like that. I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just different name thing. Yeah.
people believe in Jesus, but they don't believe in like there's a demonic entity out there either. Looks like it's the
Yeah, we
same.
were just talking
Yeah.
about that the other day.
Yeah. It's funny because like I said, it's the same thing, only different.
Yeah, we listen to a lot of podcasts at work, paranormal and Bigfoot podcasts like that,
Mm-hmm.
and the people on.
So let me ask you,
Yeah,
let me do a little interview with you here.
go for it.
What do you think? What do you think of Bigfoot?
I want to
Bigfoot, is
believe
he
it.
real?
I do really want to believe it,
Yeah.
and I do think it's out
Uh-huh.
there. But I want to see one to like fully believe. I believe there's something
Yeah.
out there,
Uh-huh.
but I would like to see it myself to like fully,
Mm-hmm.
fully believe it.
Yeah. But what's going to happen when you do see him?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'll definitely believe.
It's funny because people, I mean, I've never seen one, obviously. I believe that it's out there. With all the history, going 8,000 years back of sightings and stuff. And I'm the same way. I'm like, but I want to see one. But then I think after I see one, I'm like, but then the mystery is not there anymore.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I feel like certain experiences would kind of break my reality a little bit, my understanding of it, make me question things more.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, think about it. Like I said, Bigfoot. There's encounters spanning over 8,000 years. There's they found a lamp in what is now Japan, but they found a lamp with drawings on it of Bigfoot from 8,000 years ago. And ever since then, there's been sightings everywhere. I do know that right here, not even 3 miles from my house in 1974, there was a sighting. A guy, we actually were having a garage sale or a yard sale, and a guy came up and, we had our paranormal stuff out for the show. And he's kind of wandering around, and we're thinking, okay, what's this guy hanging around for? And he comes up to us, he says, you guys are into the weird stuff? We're like, yeah. He's like, well, back in 1974, and he went on telling me this long story about how his friend and him were in Lambertville, Michigan, which is only 3 miles from my house. And where the fire department is now was woods at the time. And he said that he had an encounter with a Bigfoot, and it was to where his friend actually froze and couldn't move. And he ran away and realized that his friend wasn't with him. He went back, and his friend was like in a catatonic state where he actually had to shake him, and the kid, his friend, like I would say, came to, and his friend said, "What are you talking about? I didn't see nothing." So it's like it was almost like the Bigfoot froze time for this guy, and he didn't know anything about it. But and like I said, I've talked to a lot of people, and I have a good BS meter. And this guy here seemed really credible. Like, you could tell because the little subtle things like his eye twitching or, little macro movements of his hands and stuff to where you could see that the emotion was coming out as he was talking about this.
Yeah.
So I kind of believe him.
I heard a lot of like people saying on like the podcast I listen to that like when they see him they like freeze. It must be some kind
Hmm.
of, I don't want to say power, but some kind of ability to
Yeah.
make you like freeze.
Well, I think,
I just wonder if it's
oh, go
not
ahead.
like I was saying, maybe like you see it and you're like, well, that's not supposed to be real. I believe that it is, but also
Yeah,
I don't at the same time. But now I'm seeing it in physical, and it's like I can't process this.
exactly. It kind of goes back to like I said, with the activated reticulating system. Your brain is telling you what you're seeing is not true, so we're not going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like um, if your wife or your girlfriend says, "Hey, get me the salt out of the fridge or out of the cabinet," and you're looking, you're like, "I can't find the salt. I can't find it. I can't find it." You're telling your brain, "You can't, you can't, you can't." It may be right in front of you, but by you telling your brain that you can't see it, your brain's going, "Okay, then you can't see
It
it."
doesn't exist.
And maybe that is part of it too. Yeah, because there's so many different things that, like, the full body apparitions that you how is your brain gonna react to that? So that's true.
Now that reminded me, my wife makes fun of me because she'll say, "You can see a deer in the brush 100 yards away, but you can't see the ketchup right in front of your face in the fridge."
That's right. Yeah, because at the time you're saying, "I can't, I can't, I can't."
Mm-hmm.
So your brain's going, "Yep, you can't." And I think also with Bigfoot, now we know that from different research, we know about infrasound.
Mm-hmm.
Infrasound, I
Yeah.
have to say it
Yeah,
right.
that's it.
We know that that's a true thing. And I believe that maybe Bigfoots can put out infrasound because we know mammals can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that different animals, like the whales and stuff, they all put it out, and elephants and stuff. So maybe that's one thing we don't know. We won't know till we actually have a physical Bigfoot coming and having dinner with us or whatever, and talking to them, saying, "Oh, how can you guys stay elusive so much?" But you got to remember one thing too is, let's just say for us talking, we call him an animal. We know it's not. He's more of a Bigfoots are more of a human-like animal, but let's just say animal. An animal in the woods who lives in the woods will know you're there a hell of a lot sooner than you know that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just like dogs, or just like they can sense that you're there before. I mean, I know I was up in the UP of Michigan, and I was talking to a lady because I was like, "I want to see a moose." And the lady's like, "You've probably seen them." And I'm like, "No, I've never seen one. I want to see a moose." And she's like, "A moose is 12 feet tall, 10 feet wide. Their horns are over, what, 10 feet wide.
Yeah.
They weigh probably, what, 2,000 pounds or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
She says, "But they could be standing next to you in the woods and you wouldn't even see them because they blend in so good." And, she says, "You could be driving down the road, one could be standing there just in the trees and you won't see them." And I think maybe Bigfoot's the same way.
It's funny that you say
You
that.
know?
I had someone message me a couple weeks ago about, maybe a week ago, about being on the podcast, and she said, um, "Have you ever seen the movie Predator?
Yeah.
How he like kind of
Yeah.
cloaks into the tree?"
Uh-huh.
She said that this Bigfoot did that.
Okay.
We haven't like
Yeah.
talked to her yet, but she did like bring
Hmm.
that part up. which I mean, he says they can't.
But yeah, we don't know. That's the big thing is we don't know. And plus, you got to remember too. Now, there's been studies done on hairs that they found, and that's okay. So you've seen a polar bear,
Yeah.
okay? You know the polar bear looks white.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the whole reason it looks white is because their hairs are hollow,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and the hairs they have extra hairs in there that can absorb light and not absorb light. And they found that the Bigfoot hairs that they found that they think are Bigfoot actually had that same trait to where a Bigfoot can absorb or not absorb certain light with their hair to basically blend in with the surroundings.
Yep.
And by shimmering like that, it could be, who knows, it could be where they phased in, but it could also be where they turn a certain way and the hairs capture that amount of light and they blend in so well that they might look like they just shimmered out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm just saying that it could be that they did blink out. We don't know if they can become invisible,
Yeah.
We
Have
don't
you ever
know.
seen Harry and the Hendersons?
Oh yeah.
I just watched that with my kids yesterday. It reminds me of like it was like the last scene right before they sent Harry back into the woods, where there was a bunch of other Bigfoot that was in the picture that we didn't see until like the last
Yeah.
second.
It's like they almost allow them to see them.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So yeah,
Interesting
we don't
thing
know.
that he
That's
just brought up.
the
What,
yeah.
what's that, Luke?
I said that's an interesting thing he just brought up with the hair and all that.
Hmm. Yeah, they're doing a study now, and I say they because I can't remember the actual name of the group. I met them, and I think Ken Gerhardt's part of it or something. But um, they were at a convention one day, and this is where I learned about the hairs. They were saying that they're doing a study where they're taking polar bear hair and putting it on different things to try to mimic Bigfoot to see if that's actually how it works with that. And I have not heard anything about that study in a while. I'm gonna have to put out the word to see if they found out anything. But yeah, they're doing study on different types of hair and stuff that they found. But I found that so interesting because I never knew that polar bears are actually black. Their skin is black,
Oh, I didn't know that either.
but their hair, yeah, you shave a polar bear, they're a different color. Um, but it's the reason why they look white is because of their hair.
I
That's
did.
crazy.
So who knows, Yeah.
You had mentioned infrasound. I had something happen the other day. Luke, I had messaged you about this. Now, I've never seen any or heard of any Bigfoot or anything around here. I mean, I've seen like online they have like a website where you can ping locations where people have had encounters. But it was Thanksgiving, and me and my mom was out on the porch of my grams. It was dark out, and we we were just whooping. We were whoop whoop, just being just
Hmm.
being goofy, and all of a sudden, this. Have you ever heard like the power lines? Like whenever it's real cold, they'll kind of hum.
Oh yeah.
So after we started whooping, uh, this this tone had like surrounded us, and it sounded kind of like whenever the power lines start to vibrate or whatever because they're cold. But
Yeah.
it wasn't happening before that, and it just seemed odd that it happened afterwards, and it reminded me of the infrasound. But I don't think that that's something that we can hear with our ears, is it?
You can feel it, which turns into, it's like the headphones that I use at work now, because we're not allowed to wear earbuds anymore. We use these things called bone conducting headphones.
Oh yeah.
And so you think about that, if infrasound is vibrating your bones in your ears, you'll end up hearing it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And infrasound is a big thing with like ghost hunting and that because we've been in locations where people say that they're seeing ghosts, they're hearing voices, all this stuff, and you find out that the fan on the roof has a bad motor, and it's causing infrasound, and that's actually getting into their minds.
Mm-hmm.
People have people have had hauntings where they change an old motor in a furnace or something, and the hauntings go away. And that's why when you go into these locations, you really want to pay attention to what's going on. Do
Yeah.
do your walkthrough, and I almost called it utilities, but I can't remember the exact term. But you look at the different things like, is there water dripping? Is there a furnace running? Is there a vent? It could even just be a non-powered vent in the attic that turns by the wind that could cause sound to make it think that there's a ghost up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, infrasound's a very, very big thing. Like I said, mammals do it. We know that elephants make it infrasound. We know that whales do and stuff like that. So with Bigfoot, they could be doing it too, and maybe that's how they communicate. That's why we don't hear them talking to each other or whatever. We hear the whoops and stuff, and how do we know that like whoops and tree bangs are not warnings?
Well,
Right.
You know?
I heard on a podcast that they came in encounter with a Bigfoot, and
Hmm.
the tree knocks. They think because they're making tree knocks, but it wasn't like hitting any trees. You know how like you can
Okay.
click with your tongue real loud.
Yeah.
They think
Yep.
that's what they're doing, not banging on trees.
Yeah.
Because it kind of sounds like
Yep.
a tree banging on a tree.
Yeah. Because think about it. Are they going to rip a branch off of a tree and then start beating a tree,
Hmm.
or are they just going to make their own whoop sounds or clicking sounds? And I it's funny because people they go out bigfooting, and they're like, the first thing they do is they get a bat and they hit a tree, and making all these sounds and all that, and you're like, how do you know that you're not telling all the other bigfoots around that, warning, warning, human close, attack the human or something,
Yeah, you never know
Right.
what's going on.
just go and sit and listen. Maybe you can hear them talking. Maybe you can hear them when they walk up on you or that. But of course, being out in the woods, everything that walks up on you sounds completely different.
Now, how do you feel about them being interdimensional?
Like I say, we don't know. Are the aliens coming down and dropping off their Bigfoots because they're tired of them, or is this are the Bigfoots causing trouble on the alien planet, so they come drop them off here? We don't know.
Hmm.
There's been so many different things to where like that person you talked to said they shimmered and disappeared, or I've heard stories of people saying that Bigfoots appear to them, but they only see half of them. Like they forget to turn on the lower half of their body or whatever,
Mm.
or there's nothing there, and all of a sudden they just blink into existence and walk past and kind of blink out of existence.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, because our brains can only see a certain wavelength. Maybe they're in the infrared, or maybe they're out of our spectrum of sight to where we can't see them, and then as they come into our existence we can see them and they walk out. We don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird theories on Bigfoot.
That's it. Yeah, there's a lot of weird theories because we don't know, and just because of different encounters, make up different things. I mean, I've heard people say that, and well, I've actually talked to people that, and this is something that actually happens, is people that have Bigfoot encounters all of a sudden start having poltergeist activity in their houses. They see UFOs. They have more ghost encounters.
Hmm.
It's all connected.
Yeah, I've heard that
And
too.
they say, well, I've never had anything until I've seen that. I saw a Bigfoot. Now I'm having all this stuff happen in my house. We are they are Bigfoot's aliens? We don't know.
It's funny you say that because I had Dustin listen to a podcast um where this guy seen a Bigfoot, and he had a lot of activity happening in his house. He thought like someone
Hmm.
broke in, and there was no one there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of people seeing Bigfoots being chased by blue orbs in the woods.
I heard a lot of weird stories with Bigfoot.
Yeah, there was one story they were talking about on Mysterious Universe, and they said that this lady was driving down the street, and all of a sudden a Bigfoot come running out of the tree, stopped in front of her car, looked at her like, "Run, human!" And he ran off, and a blue light was following him, like the aliens were coming back to pick him up, and he was like trying to get away from the blue orb, you know. I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but that was a funny story that they mentioned on their
That
show.
is funny. I did hear a theory about aliens coming and picking up Bigfoot after it gets to a certain age or something like that. That's why we don't find any dead ones.
Yeah, who knows? And I've heard stories where the aliens drop them off because they're the convicted felons or whatever, and the Earth is like a penal colony. I don't
we're,
know.
we're the prison planet.
Yeah, who knows?
Looks interesting.
Do you have any other experiences that you'd like to share with us before we close this out?
um, yeah, I've had a few. Let me, like I mentioned earlier about the shadow figure. I woke up in the middle of the night, and standing over me was a 7 foot shadow figure. He had one hand leaning on my bed, and he was just looking down at me, and I just looked it up at him, and he disappeared. And I spent the next 2 hours or so looking at my room, going, "Okay, what would cause that?" You know, had that happen. Um, I know we don't have time for it here. Maybe we'll do it on another show, but I can tell you about my shared death experience with my best friend Jackie.
Oh yeah.
That's the actual. That's we're. I say I'm writing a book, but I really need to get into this and start doing it. But I'm writing a book on that experience. I had a shared death experience with my best friend Jackie, who passed away. She had a double lung transplant. 5 years later, I get a phone call saying she's not. She went in for a test. She's not going to make it. Um, Long story. I'm going to just paraphrase it here, but she, was in the hospital. So I went and saw her, came home. The next day, I got of course, me, I'm like, I got to go to work. Um, I was at work, got a phone call saying that they were going to unplug her in a half hour, and it's a 2 hour drive. So I'm like, I know I'm not going to make it. So I took my time, and the drive there, I actually had a shared death experience that completely changed my life and got me into the paranormal. And since then, I've had a lot of experiences with her. Um, One of the things I wish I would have sent it to you. I can send it to you after the show. But we were sitting here recording in the studio, and I'm sitting in my studio right now talking to you because I have my computer in front of me in case you ask any questions. I can't remember, have them in front of me. But we were sitting in the studio, and in the studio here we have the main table. My sister sits on the other side of the table. I sit on this side. Looking out, there's my art gallery, which has all the stuff from my photography, my art gallery, and then the other gathering room where we sit. And it's basically my house, but this side of the house is all studio stuff. But I can see out in the hallway where it goes into the living room. And I'm sitting here, and all of a sudden I saw a blue light go through the hallway, and I'm like, "Jen, I just saw a blue light." And she's like, jumps up, and we were done with the show. So she jumps up, grabs her recorder, and grabs the spirit box, and asks, is anybody here? And we got a response. And I know I'm gonna screw up your listening to it because it's very suggestive, but we captured an EVP of my best friend Jackie saying, "Hey Joe," and it's clear as a day. It's a Class A EVP,
Looks cool.
and yeah, it's one of the times where she just said, "You know who lives there?" And clear as day, you hear in Jackie's voice it go, "Hey Joe."
Oh my god.
So that kind of thing. I'll send it to you after we get done recording here. But
Awesome.
um, that's one of the things that happened to me. That's one of the big things about my experiences and my talks that I do is my shared death experience. And like I said, I'm writing a book about it, and it's going to be one of my main presentations. I'm going to do it We do these conferences and we talk at these conferences, and I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to do it more like a TED talk, to where I just come out and raise the emotion and lower the emotion and stuff. So that's going to be fun. But I got to finish the book first, which I need to kick myself in the butt and get going on it. It's one of those things where it's going to take me a year or so to write this book, and I need to stop procrastinating.
Would you care if we can add that EVP in so people can hear it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm an open book. You guys need anything, I'm always here for you. If we come to the conventions, we always have our equipment set up at the conventions. We do interviews right at the conventions. That's how we get a lot of the celebrities that we talk to. Stanton Freeman was one of my best interviews that we did. We interviewed him about a week or so before he passed, and that was at the convention. So when you guys see me at a convention, or if any of your listeners see us at a convention, come up to our booth. Our recording equipment's always on. If you want to do a segment with us, we'll record you.
Yeah.
Like I say, if you guys come out to the Ohio State Reformatory for Parapsychon, stop on the booth. I'll strap you down to a chair. I'll duct tape you to a chair, and we'll do an interview right there.
Yeah. Let me know when you guys have those what's it called? Those conventions.
Yeah.
We were talking about trying to get it more so we can get our name out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way that you're going to grow. That's the way that you're going to get your name out there. You can't grow by sitting in your studio. You have to get out to these conventions, and it's the best place to meet people. It's the best place to meet other weirdos like us.
Yeah.
We get out there, and it's an opportunity for people to, tell the things that they won't tell other people, because we're all like-minded.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can go up on our website. The website is 222paranormal.com. I try to update it as often as I can, but we always put on there all the different places we're going to be, a lot of different events and that we're going to be at. We have links to all of our other things. My sister, she has what it's called Poshmark Closet, where she sells clothing at unbelievably low prices. She, as we go out to these conventions, we're always sourcing different places for her clothing and stuff, and we're always ended up at cemeteries. But yeah, that's the place to find us. Go to 222paranormal.com, or you can find us on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Just look up 222 Paranormal Podcast in any of your search engines, and we'll pop up. Where our show is on all the outlets, the big ones, iHeart, Amazon, all those. We have over 385 shows. We interview everybody from the paranormal, like yourselves, and we just have fun doing it, and we try to make it a fun show. It is family friendly, so there's no cussing, stuff like that. We do slip every once in a while, but
it happens.
It's all in fun. Yeah.
We're all human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll definitely make sure to check it out.
If any of your listeners have any conventions that you would like us to speak at, let us know. We're always looking for speaking gigs because we love getting the word out. And we didn't get a chance on this show to talk about the Giants. I talk about the Giants and the Indian burial mounds and the correlation between hauntings and the mounds. As you know, we talked about West Virginia Penitentiary, which is also known as Moundsville. And it's extremely haunted because I feel that because of that mound across the street really adds to it.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can hook up again, and I'll just talk your guys' ear off for hours about different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, we'll have to I'll have to get in contact with you again and try to set up another time where we can more stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. This was a blast.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Exploring the Unknown. We thought Joe's stories were interesting. We hope you did too. You can go find us on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and we have our website posted on our Facebook page where you can find all the links to where our episodes are posted. Thank you.